The war room aboard the Valor was dimly lit, its curved walls lined with flickering tactical displays and the soft hum of sensor arrays. Holographic stars shimmered in the center of the chamber, forming a three-dimensional representation of the sector. Coalition-held systems pulsing red, Alliance routes traced in pale blue. In the heart of it, a single crimson marker pulsed with deliberate menace. Charon Station, the Coalition's weapons depot nestled in the border zone. Vera Kale stood within the projection, her arms folded neatly across the chest of her diplomat's uniform. The glow of the map danced across her face, catching in the sharp amber of her eyes. She did not fidget, did not pace. Stillness had become her armor. Behind that stillness, however, her mind churned, calculating the political angles, balancing the weight of this offensive against the fragile threads of unity she'd barely managed to weave. Draven Locke appeared first, her figure flickering into view in the holocom ring across from Vera. The Resolute's bridge was visible behind her for just a second, smoke trailing from damaged consoles, sparks dancing along scorched wiring. Draven's uniform bore fresh burn marks. Her hair was pulled back tighter than usual, and her expression was steel. "Ambassador," she said by way of greeting. No pleasantries, no wasted words. "Captain," Vera returned calmly. "I see the Resolute has taken another beating." Draven didn't flinch. "We're still operational." Moments later, a third figure materialized. Rowan Vale, armor half unzipped, gloves shoved into her belt, a datapad in one hand and a field med patch still clinging to her collarbone. She looked like she'd just come off the battlefield, and knowing her, she had. "Am I late, or just fashionably wounded?" Rowan smirked. "You're exactly on time," Vera replied, lips twitching at the edges. "We've reached the point in the war where both might be true." The holographic map expanded between them, zooming in on the red-lit shape of Charon Station. "This is our target," Vera said, her tone crisp. "It's a Coalition weapons depot, supplies munitions, advanced rail cannons, and refit packages for deep-range cruisers. Intelligence suggests they've started stockpiling something new, potentially fusion disruptors." Rowan raised a brow. "Something new always means something worse." "Precisely," Vera nodded. "If they deploy those against civilian infrastructure, we lose more than ground. We lose narrative. We cannot let them set the tempo again." Draven studied the map. "What's the defense grid?" 3 orbital platforms, automated flak arrays, and a cruiser group," Vera replied. "Standard garrison. But," she gestured to a blinking side marker, "they've rerouted 2 destroyers from the Atrax front. We have a window of opportunity before reinforcements cycle back in." Draven's voice dropped slightly. "Then we hit them hard, fast. Don't give them time to call for help." Vera nodded, then turned to Rowan. "Your strike teams will drop here, ground access points on the lower decks, disable internal comms and sabotage the fuel lines. We want this depot gone, not captured." Rowan's usual levity faded. "We'll take losses. That kind of infiltration without full air cover, it's a knife fight in a reactor tunnel." "I know," Vera said softly. "But if we pull this off, it won't just be a victory. It'll be a statement that the Alliance has teeth." A pause settled between the 3 women. Draven finally spoke, voice low and measured. "We need to be honest about what this costs. This isn't Epsilon Prime. We're not just trying to survive anymore. We're fighting to shape the field." "I don't plan on losing this fight," Rowan said. But there was no bravado in her voice, only certainty forged from blood and repetition. Vera stepped forward, letting her voice drop to something colder, sharper. "And if we don't strike now, this alliance will splinter before it's even whole. The other delegates are watching, some with hope, some with knives hidden in their sleeves." She let that sit for a moment, then flicked her fingers across the control pad. A new wave of symbols lit up the map, fleet vectors, drop pod trajectories, fallback points. "I'll coordinate the diplomatic cover," she added. "Keep the Council distracted just long enough. But the victory, they need to see it come from you." Rowan gave a curt nod. "We'll make it count." Draven narrowed her eyes, already mentally walking the firing lines. "Then we move at dawn cycle." The connection began to dissolve, one figure at a time. Rowan first, then Draven. Vera stood alone once more in the chamber, watching the crimson marker pulse at the center of the map. A depot, a battle, a message, and behind it all, the creeping knowledge that unity always comes at a cost. The cold void stretched before them, an endless sea of stars flickering across the black canvas. The Allied fleet emerged from hyperspace like phantoms, the ripple of distorted space leaving a shimmering trail in their wake. Dozens of vessels took formation, sleek Terran cruisers, bulkier Zorth support ships, and a pair of nimble scout frigates from the insectoid Plarex, their hulls spiked with sensor arrays. At the center of it all, the Resolute surged forward, its reinforced armor patched in places, but its presence still commanding. On the bridge, the atmosphere was electric, controlled tension layered beneath disciplined movements and quiet voices. Captain Draven Locke stood at the helm, arms folded behind her back, her expression unreadable. The glow of the tactical display danced across her face, bathing her in shifting hues of blue and red as the fleet settled into its strike pattern. "Fleet elements holding formation," reported Lieutenant Alvarez from his console. "Zorth cruisers on the port flank, Plarex frigates taking rear recon sweep. No coalition signals detected yet." "Keep sensors at full range," Draven replied. "If they've moved patrol routes, I want to know before it becomes a firefight." Commander Harris approached quietly, datapad in hand. "Engineering says the shield lattice is holding, but we'll need a recharge cycle after this engagement. That reactor patchwork won't last another full burn." Draven gave a small nod, one battle at a time. She turned her gaze to the viewport. Charon's star glowed faintly in the distance, distant, cold, a pale light that did little to mask the dread beneath it. Somewhere near that faint beacon, the depot floated, humming with weapon stockpiles and arrogance. The Coalition thought it untouchable. She intended to prove otherwise. Across the fleet, readiness drills commenced. Fighters launched from carrier bays, forming sleek arrowhead patterns as they fanned out ahead of the formation. Combat pilots in exoflight suits ran final diagnostics. Missile bays were loaded, targeting systems locked and synchronized across species lines, a coordinated dance forged from necessity rather than trust. Draven moved toward the auxiliary console, scanning the synced positions of her allied captains. A new name blinked near the front of the formation: Captain Lyra Ham, commanding the Farich, a Terran corvette outfitted for rapid assault. Draven tapped her comm. "Ha Fariach, report in." Han's voice crackled back. "Weapons online, engines hot. We'll clear a corridor through their flak grid and punch through their outer line." Draven allowed a faint glint of approval in her eyes. Han was young, but quick, and more importantly, reckless enough to make a dent. She shifted her focus to another icon, Zorth Captain Velin, piloting the Moor-Keth, a cruiser with a peculiar lattice of glowing crystal reactors woven into its hull. "Captain Velin, your task is to suppress orbital platforms once Rowan's strike team breaches the lower deck. Keep the line tight. No friendly fire." The Zorth captain's reply came in a low, watery tone. "Acknowledged, resolute. No fire shall fall where your shadow stretches." Draven tapped off the comm and looked back to the center display. "ETA to Charon Depot?" she asked. 14 minutes, Alvarez replied. 14 minutes until everything changed. Draven turned to Harris again, quieter now. "How's the crew?" He paused. "Tired, but focused. They trust you, Captain." That trust, she thought, was a weight heavier than command, heavier than armor. She had to keep them sharp, alive, not just for the sake of victory, but because the memory of those already lost clung to the walls of this ship like ghosts. The lights flickered briefly, just a moment, but long enough to earn a few tense glances across the bridge. Draven spoke low, almost to herself. "Let's make it worth the cost." And as the fleet accelerated toward the edge of Coalition space, the hum of engines became the drumbeat of an alliance finally ready to strike. Charon Station appeared like a blackened thorn against the dim glow of its system star, angular, fortress-like, coiled with metal spires and weapon arrays. It hung in orbit above a barren, wind-scoured planet, surrounded by a thin curtain of debris and the skeletal remains of older defense satellites. It was never designed to be beautiful, only deadly. The Allied fleet broke formation like a blade sliding into flesh. "Engaging outer defense net," Draven Locke said flatly from the bridge of the Resolute. "Target all orbital platforms, no hesitation." The first wave struck in synchronized fury. Terran corvettes dove forward, flanking with Plarex frigates as automated turrets sprang to life from the station's perimeter. Rail cannons spat streaks of tungsten fire. The sky lit with flares, torpedoes, and retaliatory pulses of light that tore across the battlefield. The Resolute's main guns roared, hammering one of the platforms until it cracked like old stone, debris scattering across the orbital lane. Draven stood firm as the ship rattled beneath her. Alvarez, redirect targeting to Platform 2. Get that thing offline before it starts piercing hulls. On it, he replied, sweat gleaming on his brow. Murketh is taking heavy fire on the flank. Have them pull back behind Farich. Tell Han to punch through their forward cannon array and buy Velen time. The fleet's battle choreography tightened into bloody rhythm. Explosions bloomed in the distance, some coalition, some tragically not. A Terran escort vessel veered too late, taking a rail cannon blast to its reactor core. It vanished in a blink of searing white light. Direct hit, Harris muttered from her side. No survivors. Draven didn't flinch. Her voice only grew colder. Keep pushing. Groundside, Rowan's infiltration begins. On the barren surface below, the wind shrieked through razor-edged rock spires. Dust storms swirled across the approach zone as drop pods screamed through the atmosphere, flaming streaks cutting through the desolate sky. Rowan Vale's pod slammed into the ground with a bone-jarring thud. Her boots hit dirt before the hatch even finished cycling open. Form up, she barked, already unholstering her rifle. Around her, her strike team emerged, a mix of Terran Marines, Plarex tunnel scouts, and Zorth engineers carrying satchel charges rigged for sabotage. The approach route was brutal, a winding canyon riddled with narrow choke points and half-buried sensor nodes. Coalition skirmishers were already en route. The first shots rang out before they'd even cleared the first ridge. Take cover, Rowan shouted, diving behind a jagged outcrop as energy blasts scorched the air above her. Her team returned fire with disciplined bursts, the canyon echoing with the thunder of combat. 2 soldiers went down in the opening volley, 1 Plarex, 1 human. Rowan didn't stop. She moved like water through stone, direct, relentless, precise. Move forward. We've got to breach their secondary hatch before they lock it down. An explosion ahead signaled success. One of the Zorth charges collapsing a bunker entrance. Smoke billowed out, followed by a coalition trooper in heavy armor who barely had time to raise a weapon before Rowan's sidearm put him down with a clean shot to the visor. She led the charge through the smoking threshold into the bowels of Charon Station, the corridors dim and industrial, lit by flickering red alert strips and echoing with klaxon howls. The coalition hadn't expected a coordinated ground assault. That was their mistake. Split up into sabotage teams, Rowan ordered. We hit fuel conduits, targeting relays and supply holds. We leave nothing for them to salvage. One of her soldiers, Corporal Main, hesitated. Commander, what about evac protocols? Rowan looked over her shoulder, eyes sharp beneath the grime and sweat. There won't be evac if we don't break their spine first. Main nodded, and the team dispersed into the depths of the station. The hunt had begun. The corridors of Charon Station were a labyrinth of metal and shadows. Warning lights pulsed along the bulkheads like a heartbeat, and the air smelled of scorched wiring and chemical coolant. Somewhere in the distance, the low thrum of internal reactors vibrated through the floor, an ominous reminder of the station's still beating heart. Rowan Vale's team moved in silence, boots thudding against grated walkways as they weaved deeper into the understructure. The Coalition's initial response had been sloppy, disorganized patrols, incomplete barricades, but now that advantage was evaporating. Reinforcements were arriving. They weren't hunting the enemy anymore. They were being hunted. Commander, explosive charges set on subsection B, crackled a voice in her comms. We're pulling back to regroup. The transmission cut out in a burst of static and screaming. Rowan froze mid-step. Repeat that transmission. Nothing. Main, now beside her, glanced down the corridor they'd just passed. That was Frane's squad. Rowan tapped her earpiece. Frane, report. Silence answered her. She didn't curse, didn't flinch. Instead, she turned to her remaining team. We move. Eyes up, safety's off. They rounded the next corner and walked straight into the kill zone. Coalition shock troops dropped from upper catwalks, armor bristling with integrated weapons. The first volley of plasma tore through the lead engineer's chest plate, sending him crashing backward in a shower of sparks and blood. Ambush! Rowan yelled, diving for cover behind a storage container as the corridor erupted in chaos. Weapons fire echoed violently, screams mixed with the shriek of melting steel. Maine returned fire, emptying a full clip into one trooper's faceplate before a second blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. He hit the deck hard but kept firing from the ground. Rowan crawled beside him, dragging him into partial cover. "Stay with me." "I'm fine," he grunted, blood soaking through his uniform. Another soldier, Private Solis, vaulted over a pipe to throw a grenade, only to be caught mid-air by a high-caliber rail round. Her body slammed against the bulkhead, limp and lifeless. Rowan didn't look away. She couldn't afford to. "We're getting pinned," Maine gasped. "We need to fall back." "No," Rowan snapped, checking her rifle's power cell. "We fall back now, we lose our charges. We hold this corridor until the countdown ends." More plasma bolts screamed past her head, one glancing off her pauldron. She fired back, a clean shot that cracked a coalition trooper's visor and sent him sprawling. 5 minutes to detonation. Crackled a voice from the sabotage team deeper in the station. Rowan's mind raced. They couldn't hold this position for 5 more minutes, not without reinforcements or a miracle. She looked to Maine, then down the corridor to where Solis had fallen. "You two," she pointed to her remaining soldiers, "fall back to the support tunnel. Take the wounded. I'll hold them here." Maine's eyes widened. "Commander?" "That's an order." She didn't wait for argument. She turned and ran headlong toward the enemy. Cover fire roared behind her as she charged down the corridor. Plasma blasts sliced past her, searing heat brushing her armor. She fired in bursts, ducking, weaving, moving like a phantom through the smoke and chaos. Her goal wasn't to win the fight, it was to buy seconds. Just seconds. The coalition troops advanced, but Rowan's onslaught staggered them. She ducked behind a power conduit, reloading as sparks rained from the ceiling. Her HUD flickered, her pulse hammered in her ears, and then, boom. The first charge detonated in the lower deck. A concussive blast shook the floor and brought a section of the hallway crashing down behind her, blocking the enemy advance with a wall of flaming debris. She exhaled hard, blood dripping from a gash above her brow. "Charge is successful," came the voice from the sabotage team. "Charon's internal fuel grid is compromised. Secondary blast chain ready." Rowan slumped against the wall, weapons still raised, eyes scanning the smoke-filled corridor. "Copy that," she said, her voice hoarse. "Get the hell out. Rendezvous at the exfil point." She staggered to her feet and started walking, alone, through the broken artery of the station, a single soldier in a dying machine. From orbit, Charon Station was coming apart. Explosions pulsed across its hull in rhythmic bursts, blooming like fiery blossoms against the blackness of space. Gouts of flame and vaporized steel erupted from its lower decks, a chain reaction of sabotage tearing through fuel lines and munitions bays. Entire sections broke away, spinning into the void as automated defenses flickered and died. On the Resolute's bridge, Captain Draven Locke stood motionless, eyes locked on the tactical display as new enemy signals flared across the screen. "They're sending in reinforcements," Alvarez said grimly. 3 destroyers just jumped in from the far perimeter. Draven's jaw clenched. "That's too fast. Coalition was waiting for this." Commander Harris nodded, already issuing orders to the weapons crew. "They'll push through the flank and cut off our escape routes." "They're not here to defend the station," Draven said, her voice low and cold. "They're here to make us bleed." The comm crackled. Captain Lyra Hand's voice urgent and strained. "Farich is taking heavy fire. We've lost forward shielding. I'm routing backup power, but we won't hold long." Draven's fingers tightened around the edge of her console. "Tell Han to fall back behind our defense line. We'll cover her." The deck shook violently as the Resolute absorbed another hit, plasma beams scraping across its armor, bursting through one of the aft stabilizers. Sparks cascaded from the ceiling. Emergency klaxons howled. "Damage on Deck 9, Alvarez shouted. "Hull breach in reactor corridor. Emergency bulkheads are sealing." "Return fire on the lead destroyer," Draven snapped. "Target their sensor array. Blind them." Resolute's main guns roared again, blinding pulses of energy streaking into the void. One shot struck true, punching through the enemy destroyer's forward shielding and shearing a wing of armor clean off. The vessel veered, momentarily disoriented, but the others pressed forward, relentless. A Zorth support ship beside them exploded in a violent chain reaction. caught mid-maneuver by a pair of rail cannon shots. Its debris scattered across the fleet, striking a Plarex frigate and crippling its engines. Harris swore under his breath. "We're losing ships fast." Draven didn't reply. Her mind was already racing ahead, measuring angles, calculating burn rates, weighing survival against strategy. "We're not retreating," she said. "Not yet." She turned toward the helm. "Bring us into close range with the destroyers. Get under their firing arcs." Alvarez's eyes widened. "That puts us right in the kill zone." "Exactly," Draven said. "They won't expect it. That's our window." Resolute surged forward, engines screaming, diving directly toward the largest destroyer. The Coalition fleet hesitated, just for a second, and that second was enough. The Valor reappeared on the edge of the field, weapons flaring as Rowan's ship opened fire with devastating precision. "Valor is in position," Harris reported, breath catching. "They're cutting off the flanking ships." The tide began to turn. Allied ships regrouped behind the Valor's screen, pouring coordinated fire into the crippled destroyers. One by one, the Coalition vessels buckled under the combined assault, first losing engines, then structural integrity. From the planet's surface, the last remaining sabotage team scrambled for evac as fire cascaded up Charon's spine. The station's core detonated in a brilliant white flare, vaporizing its central tower in a flash of fusion fire that lit the sky like a second star. On the Resolute's bridge, the crew sat in stunned silence as the tactical display filled with static. Charon Station was gone. "Evac teams accounted for," Alvarez finally said, voice quiet. "Rowan's team is inbound, survivors en route." Draven exhaled slowly, her shoulders heavy. "Enemy retreat confirmed," Harris added. "They're pulling back." The sky was quiet again, but it was a silence filled with smoke, with drifting wreckage, with names that would never be spoken again except in memorial halls. Draven stepped away from the console, eyes distant. "Start recovery ops, and send word to the fleet." "Message, Captain?" Harris asked. Draven looked out through the shattered viewport at the stars beyond. "Tell them it wasn't just a victory," she said quietly. "It was a warning. We're not finished." The repair station nestled within the asteroid field pulsed with activity. Welding sparks danced along broken hulls, EVA crews darted across the battered surfaces of warships, and medical shuttles moved in constant rhythm between docking bays. The price of victory was etched into every dented panel, every flickering light, every silence where a voice should have been. Inside the station's command concourse, the atmosphere was subdued. The chatter was low, movement deliberate, every officer and mechanic carrying the weight of what had been won and what had been lost. Draven Locke stood beside a reinforced viewport, her arms folded, eyes fixed on the Resolute as it floated among scaffolding and drone units. Damage control crews clung to its side like ants repairing a wounded beast. She didn't need a report to know what it cost. She had seen it, heard it in the comms, in the explosions, in the screams cut short. Behind her, footsteps approached. "Figured I'd find you here," Rowan Vale said, her voice low, still hoarse from the battlefield. Draven didn't look back. "I had reports to ignore." Rowan stepped beside her, gaze following hers toward the ship. "We lost good people." Draven nodded once. "Solis, Frayne, Yenel, half of Han's squad. Velin's cruiser won't fly again. And Charon's gone," Rowan added. "That's going to ripple through the Coalition." Draven finally turned to her, eyes colder than usual. "Not enough. The Council needed a symbol. We gave them ashes." Rowan leaned back slightly, hands on her hips. "Ashes are how you make fire, Locke." That almost earned a smile. A door hissed open behind them. Vera Kale entered, her diplomat's uniform pristine even amid the station's soot and chaos. She walked with purpose, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion. Her presence drew both women to attention, not out of protocol, but out of understanding. "You did it," Vera said, her voice soft but resolute. "Charon is gone. The Alliance sees what we're capable of now." Draven raised an eyebrow. "They see the wreckage. They see the dead. Will that be enough?" "It has to be," Vera said. "We've already received word 2 border delegates are breaking neutrality. They want talks. More may follow." Rowan crossed her arms. "Talks cheap. Ships aren't." "They'll send both if we hold the line," Vera said. "But this victory, this moment, it's the hinge the entire war will swing on." Draven's gaze lingered on Vera for a moment longer. "Then make it count." "I intend to," Vera replied. She took a breath. "There will be pressure. From inside and outside the Alliance, political fractures, resource disputes, propaganda from the Coalition. Every inch we gain, they'll try to claw it back with whispers and doubt. Rowan grinned faintly. Then we shout louder. Draven nodded slowly and hit harder. Vera turned toward the viewport, watching the stars flicker beyond the station. What we've built here, it's not unity yet. It's momentum, but that's enough for now. The three stood in silence, bound by the same exhaustion, the same fire, and the same weight. Outside, the ships floated like wounded wolves in orbit, but behind them, something stronger was forming, something sharp-edged and determined. Not just a fleet, not just a force, a cause. The chamber was dark, lit only by slats of red light bleeding through the metal ribs of the command dais. Silence reigned, thick, coiled, alive with tension. Even the air felt heavier aboard the Coalition dreadnought Dominion Ascendant, flagship of Sector Warlord Tarvan Malrex. Malrex stood before a towering hololith of Charon Station, its smouldering wreckage frozen mid-collapse, orbiting the shattered planetoid in mockery of its former strength. His posture was rigid, armor still flecked with remnants of battle, a ceremonial act of mourning or rage, none could say. Behind him, lesser commanders lingered in a half-circle, motionless in the gloom. No one spoke until spoken to. The humans, Malrex said at last, voice smooth as crushed stone, have delivered their message. He didn't shout, he didn't pace. His tone was cold, clipped like ice cracking beneath pressure. They struck fast, coordinated, sacrificed with precision. He turned slightly, the gleam of his cybernetic eye casting a faint crimson beam. Not like beasts, like tacticians. One of the junior tacticians, a Cathari-scaled officer with flickering throat lights, shifted uncomfortably. They had Plarex and Zorth support. The alliance grows. Malrex's head tilted slowly. I'm aware. I'm also aware that Charon was more than a depot. It was a signal, a warning to them. And now, it is rubble. He turned fully now, facing the others. Let them think they've won something. Another commander, tall and hooded, spoke in a hollow voice. Zareth Vox will not be pleased. Malrex let a thin, humorless smile crease his lips. Zareth commands from the top of a throne made of doctrine. He sees humans as a corruption, something to be sterilized, but he has never bled beside their kind. There was a pause, sharp and sudden. I have! He stepped closer to the display, adjusting the projection with a flick of his fingers. Tactical schematics bloomed around it, fleet positions, intercepted signals, rally points near the outer rim. They are not chaos, he murmured. They are something worse. They are flexible. He turned back toward his commanders, eyes like molten glass. Mobilize the Irontide fleet. Reposition forward patrols along the neutral corridor. I want their next strike met with flame. And if they don't strike again? The hooded figure asked. They will, Malrex said. They've tasted blood. The key now is not stopping them. He stepped down from the dais, armored boots ringing across the floor. It's making them regret ever thinking they could win.